Welcome back to the investigation. I was looking at my schedule recently, and I just had this visceral reaction to it.
Like a physical dread.
Yeah, exactly, a physical dread. And it wasn't even a particularly chaotic block of tasks. It was just normal.
Hmm.
But I felt like I was standing at the base of this massive mountain, just staring up at the summit, completely paralyzed.
It is heavy. I think everyone listening right now knows that exact flavor of dread. It's that feeling when you're trying to get something done, right? Maybe it's a huge project, or maybe you're just trying to stick to a new habit for more than a few consecutive attempts.
Right, it feels like you're literally pushing a boulder up a steep hill.
You're sweating, you're straining, your wheels are just spinning.
And the internal monologue is brutal. You're
Mm.
sitting there thinking, why is this so hard? Is there something fundamentally wrong with me? Do I just lack the grit that everybody else seems to have?
We act as our own harshest critics. We really do. We internalize all of that friction. We tell ourselves, well, if I were just stronger, if I had more discipline like those productivity gurus I see online, this would be effortless.
We personalize the failure. It becomes a character judgment.
Exactly.
But that is exactly why we are doing this specific investigation. We are flipping that script entirely. We've gone through a massive stack of research for this one. We're talking ancient military strategy, modern behavioral science, environmental psychology.
And the consensus across all those fields is actually pretty shocking when you put it together.
It really is. The data suggests that most of those struggles are not failures of character. They are failures of setting. You might be fighting a battle you were mathematically destined to lose, not because you were weak, but simply because of where you were standing.
That's the core idea we're unpacking. We're looking primarily at Sun Tzu's The Art of War, specifically the sections on terrain and the 9 situations, and we're cross-referencing that ancient wisdom with modern habit researchers and environmental psychology.
And when you overlay those maps, you get this incredible realization. Sun Tzu didn't just want to win battles. He actually thought that fighting like the act of clashing swords was a suboptimal outcome.
Right, a sign of bad planning. He wanted to choose the battlefield where winning was the inevitable result.
Choosing the battlefield where winning is inevitable. I absolutely love that phrasing. It sounds almost like cheating, but as we're going to see, it's actually just high-level strategy. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to redesign our lives to be inevitable, I have a small request for everyone listening. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
It really helps support the research we do here.
It does. So let's start with a high-level overview. We need to define our terms, right? Because words like terrain and conditions sound a bit abstract.
For Sun Tzu, writing thousands of years ago, this was literal. He was talking about hills, rivers, marshes, narrow mountain passes.
But obviously, our listeners aren't marching infantries across ancient landscapes.
I mean, I assume not. So, in plain English, for us, what is terrain? In the modern context, terrain is the total environment you operate in. It's the set of constraints around you. It is the invisible field that makes your actions either effortlessly easy or impossibly hard.
So it's not just the physical room you're sitting in.
Oh, the room is huge, but no, it's much more than that. It's the lighting, it's the people around you, it's the digital noise on your devices, it's the software you're forced to use. Think of terrain as an invisible hand that is constantly applying pressure. It's either pushing you toward your objective or dragging you away from it.
It's the context of your life, not the content of your character.
That was a perfect way to phrase it. And the mission of this entire discussion is to move us away from relying on willpower. Because, let's be honest, we know willpower is a finite resource.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there. When it gets late, the willpower tank is completely empty, and you find yourself eating junk food while doom scrolling.
Exactly. So the goal is to shift toward relying on choosing the field where the conditions themselves do the heavy lifting for you.
We want to move from a mindset of trying harder to a mindset of positioning better.
Precisely.
Let's unpack the core principle here, which we are calling the field dictates the flow. This comes straight from the source text. Sun Tzu talks about these 9 situations or varieties of ground. We don't need to memorize all 9 right now, but what was his big psychological insight there?
His insight was that the ground dictates the spirit of the army. And you have to remember, this is a profound realization for a military general. He was essentially acting as the first environmental psychologist.
Right.
He realized that soldiers behave entirely differently depending on where they are standing, regardless of how naturally brave or cowardly they might be.
So the environment overrides their innate personality.
To a massive degree, yes. For example, he talks extensively about desperate ground. This is ground where there's no escape. Maybe you have a raging river behind you and a massive enemy force in front of you.
Nowhere to run.
Nowhere. And he says on desperate ground, soldiers will fight with unbelievable ferocity because they simply have to. Survival kicks in. But if those exact same soldiers are on what he calls dispersive ground, which he defines as territory close to their own homes, they are highly likely to scatter and run away.
Because safety is just too close.
Exactly. Their minds aren't on the battle. They're thinking about their families, their warm beds, their property.
That is fascinating. So on dispersive ground, the proximity to comfort actually makes them weaker, less focused soldiers.
It disperses their focus, literally. And this leads to what we might call the golden rule of this entire framework. Stop trying to win on bad terrain.
Stop trying to win on bad terrain. It sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but we violate this rule constantly in our daily lives.
Constantly. We love fighting uphill. Sun Tzu talks about the strategic folly of fighting uphill or upstream. He meant this literally. If your enemy holds the high ground on a hill, do not attack them from below.
Because gravity is working against you.
Simple physics. Your arrows fall short, their arrows fly further and faster. You are physically exhausted just climbing up to start the fight. But metaphorically, we do this all the time. We try to do deep, highly focused, complex cognitive work in a chaotic, noisy, open-plan office.
That is fighting uphill.
Or trying to have a calm, rational, empathetic conversation with a partner when you are both exhausted, starving, and rushing to get somewhere.
Oh, I've been there. That is what I would call emotional uphill terrain.
Yeah.
You are fighting against your own biology and wondering why you're losing.
Sun Tzu has this brilliant line that summarizes this. He says, "Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted."
The difference between freshness and exhaustion,
Yeah.
it's all about energy conservation.
Exactly. The person who chooses the terrain gets to sit there, rest, and prepare mentally. The person who lets the terrain happen to them, the one who is just reacting, is running around, and by the time they actually need to perform, their energy is already drained.
So the shift in perspective we want you, the listener, to make right now is to stop asking, how do I fight harder? And start asking, where should I stand?
Where should I stand? It changes the entire game. It turns a question of brute force effort into a question of intelligent positioning.
Now, Sun Tzu mentions a couple of specific types of ground that I think are highly relevant to modern life. He contrasts accessible ground with entangling ground. What's the fundamental difference there?
Accessible ground is neutral. It's ground that can be freely traversed by both sides. It represents freedom of movement. You can enter it easily, and crucially, you can exit it easily.
Okay, and entangling ground.
Entangling ground is a trap. He describes it as ground that is easy to abandon but incredibly hard to reoccupy.
Hard to reoccupy. Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, if you leave a safe position to advance into entangling ground and things go wrong, you cannot get back to safety. You're stuck in the mud. In modern terms, think of entangling ground as a situation or a distraction that is effortless to slide into, but requires a Herculean effort to pull yourself out of.
Oh, wow. That sounds exactly like social media or a smartphone algorithm. It is effortless to abandon your work and slide into an endless video feed.
It is the ultimate modern entangling ground. You abandon your secure position of focus to check just one notification, very easy to abandon. But trying to claw your way back out of that feed to reoccupy your deep focus, it's almost impossible. You've surrendered the high ground.
Okay, so we had the ancient principles down. Now let's do the modern translation. We need to map this out because, as we established, we aren't dealing with literal marshes and rugged steeps. We are dealing with schedules, digital pings, and social obligations. How do we categorize the terrain of a modern life?
We can break the modern landscape down into 5 distinct categories. If you want to audit your life, these are the 5 layers you need to look at. The first one, and this is perhaps the most overlooked, is schedule and time windows.
The Sun Tzu calls this heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds mystical, but it's very practical.
Very practical. In the text, heaven refers to the variables you absolutely cannot control but must align your strategy with. The seasons, day and night, heat and cold. Sun Tzu explicitly says you do not launch a massive campaign in the dead of winter if you can avoid it. In modern terms, heaven is your biological rhythm.
Chronobiology.
Exactly. Are you operating in a season or a time window that actually supports the task? We all have different chronotypes. Some of us are larks, some are owls. If you are trying to do your most creative, high wattage, complex writing mid-afternoon when your cortisol is dropping and your brain fog is peaking, you are fighting against heaven.
You're fighting out of season.
You're trying to harvest crops in the snow. And no amount of willpower changes the fact that it is snowing. You can grit your teeth, you can drink massive amounts of caffeine, you can try to force it, but the yield will be incredibly low and the biological cost will be high.
Strategy requires aligning your high-energy tasks with your high-energy windows.
Right, stop fighting the clock.
Okay, so that's heaven. What is the second category of modern terrain?
The second is physical environment and distractions. This correlates to Earth in the classic sense. The layout of your room, the lighting, the ambient noise, the visual cues surrounding you.
And this brings us right back to dispersive ground, doesn't it?
It does. Remember, dispersive ground is fighting in your own home territory. Sun Tzu warned against fighting there because the soldiers will just think of their families. In modern remote work life, dispersive ground is trying to do your job from the kitchen table.
Where you can see the laundry basket overflowing, the dirty dishes in the sink, the television remote sitting right there.
Precisely. It is the environment of highest distraction because it is the environment of highest comfort and highest obligation to non-work things. The dispersive nature of your house makes it very hard to maintain the spirit of work unless you create a very strict artificial boundary.
We'll definitely get to how to fix that and build a fortress later on. What is the third category?
Third is your social environment. This is the expectations, the moods, and the energy of the people immediately nearby. We are herd animals at our core. Behavior is highly contagious. There is a well-documented concept in neuroscience regarding mirror neurons. We literally simulate the physical and emotional actions of the people around us in our own brains.
So if I'm sitting next to a coworker who is constantly sighing, scrolling their phone, and acting disengaged, my brain is secretly practicing being disengaged.
In a very real way, yes. If you are on terrain where everyone else is slacking off, complaining, or just being cynical, you are fighting a massive uphill battle to stay focused and positive. You are swimming against a very strong social current.
That completely explains why working in a quiet library feels fundamentally different from working in a loud cafe where everyone is gossiping. The library has a collective energy of silence and focus.
That is what we call a force multiplier terrain. The social pressure is actively working for you instead of against you.
Okay, moving on to the fourth category.
Information inputs. This is the emotional noise. The news feeds, the push notifications, the constant barrage of digital alerts. As we discussed, this acts as entangling ground, trapping your attention. But it's also about the specific type of information. If you start your routine by reading highly sensational, tragic news stories, you have fundamentally altered the terrain of your own mind.
You've introduced anxiety and helplessness before you've even started your actual work.
You've poisoned the well, you've muddied the ground, you are now forcing your brain to march through a swamp of negativity just to write an email.
Wow. And finally, the fifth category.
Tools, systems, and friction points. These are the physical and digital constraints that act like marshes or rugged steeps in Sun Tzu's terms. They slow down the march. Is your computer incredibly slow? Is the software you use totally non-intuitive? Is your gym located way across town in heavy traffic?
Those are the friction points.
They are. If your laptop takes a long time to boot up every single time you open it, that is a muddy marsh you have to wade through every single time you want to be productive.
And that marsh just sucks the momentum right out of you before you even begin.
It kills the spirit of the army.
Okay, so we've clearly defined the terrain. We know exactly what we are up against. Schedules, physical space, people, information, and systems. Now let's get into the really practical stuff. The practical terrain moves. How do we actually design the win? We've identified 4 key strategic moves based on the sources. Let's start with move 1, create home field advantage.
Now, he sounds a bit like a sports cliche, but it's vastly deeper than that. It's about the core strategic concept of positioning. Sun Tzu says, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy. He does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him.
Imposes his will. That sounds a little aggressive for daily life.
It's not aggressive, it's assertive. In practice, this means you do not just passively wander into a chaotic environment hoping you'll magically find focus. You build a fortress of silence or focus before the work even begins. You claim the territory first.
So before I even open my laptop, I need to consciously secure the perimeter.
Yes. This is the ritual of the start. You close the door. You put on the noise-canceling headphones, you clear the desk of absolutely anything that is not related to the immediate task. You are actively establishing a position of strength. If you just walk into a noisy room with no headphones, a cluttered desktop, and your phone ringer turned on, you have completely surrendered the home field advantage to the environment.
You're playing by the environment's rules at that point.
And the environment's default rule is chaos. Entropy is the natural state of the universe. You have to be the one to impose order.
Which leads perfectly into move 2. Remove friction before demanding discipline. This is where we bring in the modern behavioral science like James Clear's work on atomic habits. I love how seamlessly this overlays with the ancient military strategy.
It is the exact same principle, just separated by thousands of years. Sun Tzu talks about the impact of a grindstone against an egg.
Oof, that is such a vivid, visceral image.
He says that the impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg. This is affected by the science of weak points and strong. You do not want a fair fight. Fairness is bad strategy. You want a grindstone against an egg. To achieve that in your personal habits, you have to ruthlessly remove resistance. James Clear calls this priming the environment.
Give us a really tangible example of priming that creates that grindstone-level advantage.
Okay, let's say you want to work out right after waking up. The terrain must be prepped the evening before, the clothes must be laid out, the shoes must be by the door, the water bottle must be filled and waiting. If you wake up in the darkness and you have to search through a pile of laundry to find your left sock, you have introduced massive friction.
You are fighting the terrain just to get to the starting line.
Exactly. And when you first wake up, your willpower is an egg. That missing sock is the grindstone. You will lose that battle. You'll just go back to bed. But if the clothes are laid out, you have removed all the friction. Now, stepping into the workout clothes is actually the path of least resistance.
I think that phrase is the key to everything. Path of least resistance. Usually we think of that as a negative thing, like taking the lazy way out. But you're saying we need to weaponize it.
Absolutely weaponize it. Sun Tzu explicitly advises generals to occupy the sunny side of the mountain. Why make your troops freeze in the shadows? Choose the sunny side. Choose the easiest possible path for the behaviors you actually want to do. If you want to eat healthy food, the vegetables must be washed, cut, and highly visible on the front shelf of the fridge.
Right, if they're hidden in the crisper drawer inside a plastic bag, they're on difficult ground.
You won't eat them. You'll grab the processed snacks that are sitting out in the open on the counter because they are on accessible ground.
Occupy the sunny side.
Ah,
I really love that. It sounds so pleasant, but it's actually a rigorous, calculated strategy. Don't make yourself miserable for the sake of being tough. Make the right choice, the easiest choice to make.
The ultimate goal is to design a life where doing the wrong thing is incredibly difficult and doing the right thing is completely frictionless.
Which brings us to move 3. Better timing for difficult conversations. This takes terrain theory and applies it to interpersonal relationships, which I honestly think is where most of us fail the hardest.
It's a huge blind spot. We tend to think that interpersonal conflict is purely about the issues, the finances, the in-laws, the division of chores. But very often, the conflict is actually about the terrain. The ironclad rule here is never hold a high-stakes conversation on high-heat terrain.
High heat terrain. I can picture that perfectly. What defines high heat?
High heat is anytime anyone involved is hungry, tired, in a rush, or out in public. This perfectly mirrors the HAL2 acronym from recovery and therapy circles. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
If you are experiencing any of those states, the terrain is fundamentally hostile.
It's highly volatile. If you try to discuss a deep relationship issue when one person is completely exhausted after a long shift, Sun Tzu would call this a sluggish spirit, you're setting yourself up for an explosive failure. You're attacking a fortified position uphill. You need to choose a setting that is level and accessible for both parties.
So do not ambush your partner the second they walk through the door.
Never. Wait until the weekend. Wait until after a solid meal. Blood glucose levels matter immensely. Wait until you are in a private, quiet space where neither of you feels cornered. You are consciously choosing the battlefield where a peaceful resolution is actually a mathematical possibility.
It is genuinely amazing how many explosive arguments are just the result of bad timing. We think we are furious at each other, but really we're just mad at the terrain. We're mad that we are hungry and overstimulated, and we are projecting all of that environmental friction onto the other person.
Precisely. You are completely misattributing the friction of the bad environment to the character of the person you love.
That is deep. That changes how you look at every argument. Okay, move 4. Avoid predictable traps.
Sun Tzu warns generals about precipitous heights, marshes, and narrow passes. He basically says, if you see these geographical features, run away. Do not engage, just avoid them entirely.
What are the modern equivalents of narrow passes?
A modern narrow pass is any situation where you have zero maneuverability and no clear exit strategy. It is usually a high-noise environment where your emotional regulation is statistically unlikely to hold up. For example, if you know that going to a specific crowded venue with a certain group of friends always leads to you overindulging and staying out way too late, that venue is a narrow pass. You can and will be easily ambushed there by your own bad habits.
And the ambush is the loss of control.
Right. Or if you know that checking your messages right before you try to sleep ruins your rest because you inevitably see a stressful email you cannot fix until the next shift, that is a massive trap. You have willingly entered entangling ground. You are mentally trapped in panic mode, but physically stuck under the covers.
So the winning strategy is not telling yourself, I'll just check my messages quickly, but I promise I won't get stressed. The strategy is, do not even enter the narrow pass. Keep the device out of the room.
Correct. Sun Tzu says if you are near a narrow pass, leave. Do not linger to test your bravery. Do not arrogantly think you can outsmart the trap once you are standing in the middle of it. Smart generals do not fight their way out of traps. They actively avoid walking into them in the first place.
This brings up a really important point, though. We are talking a lot about manipulating the environment and recognizing hostile conditions. I want to make sure we hit on the guardrails here. Because if we aren't careful, it could sound like we're just saying, hey, it's not your fault the world is just set up against you, which could lead to total passivity. Like, oh, I didn't finish my assignment because the feng shui of my office was hostile. Sorry about that.
That is a critical distinction to make. We absolutely have to do the stoic check here. This philosophy is not about victimhood.
Right. We don't want to hand people a sophisticated excuse for failing.
Exactly. Acknowledging the power of terrain is not about blaming the physical world for your problems. It is about accepting total responsibility and embracing design. You have to frame terrain as a design challenge. If the terrain is bad, your responsibility is to pack up and move or to actively reshape it. Your responsibility is not to sit there and complain about it.
That is the true empowerment piece of this. You are not a helpless victim of the room you're sitting in. You are the master architect of that room.
Sun Tzu emphasizes over and over that the general is solely responsible for the positioning of the troops. If the troops are drowning in a swamp, that is not the swamp's fault. Swamps are just swamps. That is the general's fault for marching them into the mud. And you are the general of your own life. While we cannot control heaven, we can't control pure luck or sudden crises or the weather, we absolutely control Earth. We control where we place our feet. We control how we arrange our workspaces. We control who we allow into our inner circle.
That brings us directly to the concept of an internal locus of control. We have agency. We are using that agency to deliberately change the external conditions so that we don't have to struggle so much.
Yes, the ultimate highest expression of discipline is not gritting your teeth while you suffer. It is having the foresight and discipline to prepare the environment so you do not have to grit your teeth at all. Real, sustainable discipline is done in advance.
I really want to ground this for you, the listener.
Sure.
Let's make this incredibly concrete with 3 examples of applied strategy. We have talked a lot of theory. Let's talk pure practice. Let's look at work first.
Okay, let's say the scenario is you need to do a session of deep, uninterrupted work, maybe drafting a complex proposal or coding a new feature. The typical approach, the amateur approach, if I may be so bold, is to just sit down at your chaotic desk with your communication apps flashing, your phone screen facing up, and just try to forcefully command your brain to concentrate.
Fighting uphill in the mud.
Fighting uphill in a swamp while being shot at. The terrain move here needs to be multifaceted. First, pick the correct time window. When are you freshest and most alert? Protect that block fiercely. Second, ruthlessly reduce interruptions. Shut the door. Turn on aggressive digital blockers. There is plenty of software designed to lock you out of distracting sites.
What exactly do you mean by define the field?
I mean, absolutely no dispersive activities allowed in the designated workspace. If you enter this specific room or even just sit in this specific chair, you work, period. If you feel the urge to check social media or browse the web, you must physically stand up and leave that room to do it.
Oh, I like that. You're creating a rigid spatial boundary. The room itself becomes a psychological trigger for focus.
It is classical conditioning. Chair equals intense focus. Doorway equals rest and distraction. You train your brain to recognize the terrain.
Let's pivot to relationships. Let's go back to that conflict resolution scenario we touched on.
Scenario. Resolving a recurring frustrating conflict. Let's say you and your partner have been constantly bickering about the budget.
The typical approach is to just snap at each other while rushing to make dinner or while trapped in the car running errands.
Which is dispersive ground, distracted, noisy, full of obligations. Or constricted ground driving is terrible for deep talks because you are physically trapped in a metal box and you can't even look at each other properly. The terrain move here is deliberate. Choose calm timing. Do not do it right after a stressful shift when you are both decomposing from the day. Choose a private setting with absolutely no audience. And here is a massive pro tip. Avoid high-heat terrain where egos feel threatened by going for a walk.
Why does a walk change things so much?
Walking puts you side by side physically. You are both looking forward, out at the horizon, not staring each other down. It is infinitely less confrontational than sitting face-to-face across a table, which neurologically mimics an interrogation. You're using physical space and movement to lower the emotional temperature of the discussion.
Walking is such a brilliant hack. It literally diffuses the tension. Plus, the forward movement psychologically suggests you're making progress together. Okay, third example, habits. Let's say we want to break the universally terrible habit of phone scrolling in bed. This is the one almost everyone struggles with.
This is a textbook entangling ground problem. You get under the covers, you pick up the device just to quickly check the weather for tomorrow, and you are instantly trapped.
And before you know it, you're watching endless videos of strangers power washing their driveways.
We've all been there. The terrain move here is remarkably simple, but emotionally hard. Redesign the environment. Remove the temptation from the room completely. The charger goes in the kitchen.
Whoa, the kitchen. That feels pretty radical to most people.
The kitchen. If the device is not physically in the bedroom, you cannot scroll in bed. It becomes physically impossible to fail. You are completely removing the narrow pass. And then this is where you occupy the sunny side. You make the right action the default. You place a physical book on the nightstand exactly where the device usually sits.
So now, the absolute path of least resistance is to just pick up the book.
Exactly. You have aggressively primed the environment for reading, and you've completely blockaded the environment against scrolling. You don't need to summon heroic willpower to ignore the device because the device isn't even in the room.
They're so beautifully simple, but it just requires that one initial burst of intention to relocate the charger. Once the charger is moved, the battle is basically already won.
Win the conditions first, and the result automatically follows.
I love that so much. Okay, I want to walk you, the listener, through a guided exercise right now. We are calling this the terrain audit. I want you to actually visualize this process with us.
Let's do it. It is a highly practical 7-step mental exercise to fix whatever your biggest current struggle is.
Step 1. Name the objective in one clear sentence. What exactly are you trying to do? Write a novel? Get along better with your manager? Eat cleaner?
Keep it incredibly simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Just say, I want to exercise 3 times a week.
Step 2. Describe your current terrain with brutal honesty. Is it supportive or is it hostile? Look at the space around you. Does your living room scream exercise or does it scream take a nap?
You have to be totally honest here. No self-deception. If your gym gear is buried under a pile of junk and your schedule is crammed with useless meetings, your terrain is hostile. Admit it to yourself.
Step 3. Identify the single biggest friction point or distraction preventing your success. What is the one specific thing that derails you every single time?
Is it the endless notifications? Is it the complete lack of prepared meals? Is it a specific person who constantly drains your optimism? Pinpoint the exact enemy.
Step 4. Identify one condition you can change immediately. Not next month, but today.
Adjust the lighting. Move your desk away from the window. Install that website blocker. Put the running shoes directly blocking your front door. Change the physical state of the earth around you.
Step 5. Choose one firm boundary that protects this newly designed terrain.
This could be a strict time rule, like, I will not open my inbox until mid-morning, or a spatial rule, like, I will not bring any junk food past the front door of the house. It's a rule that acts as a wall to defend your fortress.
Step 6. Choose one tangible proof action you will do today to claim the field.
You have to actually do the thing. Move the charger to the kitchen. Chop the vegetables. Send the calendar invite to block your time. Prove to your own brain that you have taken command of the ground. Physical action seals the strategic deal.
And finally, step 7. Close with a calm internal commitment to win the conditions first and let the battle handle itself.
That is the ultimate mindset shift. You are no longer stressing about the final outcome directly. You are simply committing to maintaining the conditions that make the outcome inevitable.
That is so powerful. It takes all the intense, anxious pressure off the result and puts your focus entirely on managing the process. Before we wrap this up, let's hit the common mistakes. Where do well-meaning people go wrong when they try to apply terrain theory?
We identified 5 major traps. Mistake 1 is the absolute classic, relying on raw willpower in a fundamentally hostile environment.
The old, I know it's distracting here, but I'll just try harder this time, delusion.
Exactly. The fix for that is change the room. Do not try to change the person. If you're consistently failing, stop attacking your own character and start blaming the room's design. Then fix the room.
Mistake 2.
Ignoring the seasons or timing. Trying to force a massive high-energy harvest in the dead of your biological winter.
The fix for that? Wait for the right moment.
Uh,
Sun Tzu calls this the falcon swoop. The falcon does not just dive randomly. He waits until the timing is absolutely perfect and the strike is effortless. Patience is a highly active weapon.
Mistake 3 is fighting on dispersive ground, usually your home or comfort zones, without setting up rigid boundaries.
Like trying to do complex spreadsheets from your bed.
The worst possible idea. The fix. Create a distinct, isolated zone for effort. Even if you live in a tiny apartment, pick one specific chair. When you sit in that exact chair, you work. When you stand up from that chair, you rest. Do not mix the energies.
Mistake 4. Allowing others to dictate the terrain. Walking blindly into a meeting and letting a chaotic coworker set the tone and the pace.
The fix there is to impose your will by setting the time and the place yourself. Be the person who proactively suggests the agenda. Be the one who selects the quiet venue. You take control of the parameters before the interaction even begins.
And mistake 5.
Neglecting the exit strategy. Willingly walking into entangling ground without a plan.
The fix. Do not enter without a crystal clear plan to leave. Know exactly how you are going to politely exit the conversation, the social commitment, or the digital platform before you even open the app or walk through the door.
Precisely. A master strategist always knows exactly where the exit door is located.
This has been incredibly practical and illuminating. Let's quickly recap what we have learned today so you can take this with you. We have 7 core principles to take away.
First, terrain is the total environment and constraints you operate in. It is absolutely everything around you. Second, victory comes from proactively choosing conditions that naturally support your objective. Third, stop trying to force a win on bad terrain. It is a complete waste of your precious energy. Fourth, modern terrain includes time, physical space, social groups, and information flows. It is multidimensional. Fifth, remove friction for good actions. Add heavy friction for bad actions. Be the designer of your flow. Sixth, terrain is your responsibility to design, not an excuse you use to fail. You are the architect. And seventh, win the conditions first, and the desired result will naturally follow.
Win the conditions first.
Yeah.
That is definitely going to stick with me. We are moving away from being exhausted, reactive foot soldiers, and we are stepping up to be the strategic generals of our own lives. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on after this is over. We spend so much time trying to fix our personalities, trying to be better people. But what if the person you think you are is actually just a reflection of the terrain you've been standing on this whole time? If you change the ground beneath your feet, you might just find that you change yourself entirely.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. Change the field, change the outcome.
Well, this investigation has been a total game changer for me personally. I am definitively going to go move my charger out of the bedroom tonight.
I highly recommend it. Once you survive the first withdrawal, it changes everything about how you sleep and wake up.
Next time, we are going to take this entire philosophy even further. We are going to be discussing the 12th episode, which focuses on the Sun Tzu method for integrated strategy in daily life. We are going to see how all these disparate pieces, terrain, deception, momentum, energy, fit together into one unified, total operating system for living.
It's going to be an incredible synthesis of everything we've been building up to.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Pass-fail. Support line 1 included verbatim. Pass. Support line 2 included verbatim. Pass. No timestamps or digits included. Pass. Total length matches target range. Pass. On-screen text overlays. On-screen text overlays. Choose the field. Win the battle. On-screen text overlays. Environment beats willpower. On-screen text overlays. Stop fighting on bad terrain. On-screen text overlays. Remove friction. Improve action. On-screen text overlays. Design your conditions. On-screen text overlays. Timing is strategy. On-screen text overlays. Create home field advantage. On-screen text overlays. Win the conditions first. On-screen text overlays. Terrain is your responsibility. On-screen text overlays. Silence is a strategic position.